Hi everyone, I'm Max Haddad. Welcome back, and if this is your first time, welcome. I wanted to address some questions that I've gotten from some of you today, but specifically from Brittany Patterson. The question is, since you've been released, how have you been doing with addiction and just struggles with day-to-day life? And from Tara Richards, she asked specifically about my reintegration. Both really, really good questions. So, full disclosure, it has been crazy difficult. I was only in prison for a short time, a year. Now, that's a long time, longer than I ever planned to be in prison for, but shorter than most people. My buddy Thrasher was in for, like 4.5 years. I knew people that had been down for 50 years. There was somebody that slept right next to me that had already been in there for 22 years, and we were being released around the same time. His struggle was immense, but having just been there a year, just my readjusting to being in normal life with people that haven't been incarcerated, and it really even just taking care of myself personally, having nothing to do with other people, going to work, anything like that, just personal care has been super difficult. Now, I'm in a really good place with it right now. I would not be able to sit here and talk to you guys about this. I wouldn't be able to run 2 YouTube channels, things like that. Wouldn't really be able to do anything if if I wasn't. And when I first got out, I wasn't doing anything. Now I was exercising, but that was only because it was a habit that I had carried with me from prison, something that you do in prison so you don't go absolutely insane. But when I first got out, so when I first got put on house arrest, admittedly, the first few days were a dream come true. Okay, so I'd been sleeping on metal for a year and a half, more than that, about 2 years at that point. Yeah, there was a mattress, but it, 2 inches thick, sleeping on metal. Sleeping in a bed for the first time, and that amount of time was insane. It was so nice. It felt like laying on a cloud. And it was a really good example of something that I had taken for granted when I was free before. Something that I really never even thought about. Yeah, we sleep in beds, whatever. To be back in a bed, to have the option to take a nap if I wanted to without people screaming around me was wonderful. It was really, really, really great. Having the option to eat fresh food if I wanted, like a salad, what a concept. It was so nice to be able to have vegetables that I cooked, to cook at all, fresh chicken, fresh steak, things like that, to be able to eat like a human being, nothing lavish. I'm not going to lie, though, the first Big Mac I had was pretty great, too. Not that that's lavish, but, whatever. I could binge on food that I wanted to, and binge I did. That was the first struggle that I ran into when I got out, is I was dealing with some trauma. I would wake up in the middle of the night and feel like I was back in prison. I would be anxious, panicky even when I woke up, having had a dream about, somebody like shaking me awake in prison, and wake up and think that's where I was, smell prison, see prison, lots of dreams about it. And I dealt with that being sober. I dealt with that, though, by eating too much at night. It was the first time in a while that I had been able to really eat how I wanted to. And I went off the rails. I would have, pizza and cookies and pie and cake and chips. And, so it's something that I've addressed since then. And I'm not really mad at myself that I did it. I think I basically just needed to allow myself whatever comforts I wanted, comforts that I hadn't had access to in quite a while. I was rewarding myself in a way. Hey, dude, you got through the hardest part of your sentencing, right? We've just got house arrest and probation left. No big deal. You deserve whatever. You deserve whatever you want within reason that's legal. So food was the first struggle. Dealt with it. Something that has persisted more, that has been really an issue, and I only feel like I'm really getting a hold on the last 2 weeks, maybe not even quite that long, is my sleep. Like I said, I would wake up and feel that I was back in prison. There was about a month and a half period where something I really haven't been able to explain yet happened. And something that's never happened to me, especially as an adult before this. I started having dreams as I was falling asleep, like, those weird half dreams you have where you're kind of like aware that you're dreaming and you're sort of seeing what you were seeing as you're falling asleep, but it's not quite right. I started having dreams about a corner in my room, a really dark corner in my room, something that shouldn't be scary to an adult. The dark, whatever. There's nothing in the dark that's not there in the light. But I started having this odd obsession with it. And I don't mean that I cared about this corner. I wasn't, like, oh, the corner, the corner. I mean, as I was falling asleep, I started to think about this corner in my room and I couldn't get it to stop. And then I started feeling like somebody was standing in that corner. Only at night, only when I was falling asleep, that there was some tall, kind of too tall, slender, not Slender Man, nothing lame like that, but like something malevolent standing in that corner. And then it changed after about a week or so, I guess, into this, not just this feeling, but this certainty that when I closed my eyes, whatever was in the room with me was going to touch me. Not grab me, try to kill me, but just touch me. And it was nearly impossible to sleep in my bedroom for about a month and a half. Now, like I said, I have no idea what caused this. This is odd, right? I'm a relatively courageous human now, especially after prison. I'm not afraid of monsters. I've met monsters and they're human. I could not sleep in my room. So I started sleeping on the couch, not even laying down, sitting up with the TV on, literally with lights on for a month and a half. Some of the worst sleep that I've ever gotten, pinned on top of waking up feeling like I'm in prison, poor sleep hygiene, staying up too late, waking up too early, or sleeping in and you wake up and it's midday and you feel like, oh my God, I've wasted half the day, and circadian rhythms all screwed up. And I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden, one day, I felt better. I felt like there was no monster in my room, okay, so to be clear also, the whole time, I knew there's no monster in my room. I wasn't confused about the existence of ghosts and ghouls and monsters or not. I knew, one part of my brain knew, the biggest part of my brain, there's nothing there, but the emotional feeling part of my brain, my person, was so scared, so uncomfortable about whatever this thing was in that dark corner of my room. One day, boop, it's gone. Not a clue. Really odd. Talked to my therapist about it. We decided that it either had something to do with addiction, and I try not to read too much into stuff, but addiction, like, kind of waiting for me to grab me if I don't keep my guard up, and just prison trauma. The idea that I had to always be on guard in prison, even when I was laying in my bed, I had to sleep on my back. There's a saying in prison, sleep on your back or somebody else will. I had to sleep on my back, eye half open, that sort of thing, to protect myself. So potentially it had something to do with that, my brain finally cleansing itself of that trauma notion, that stress. As far as reintegrating with people, I'd say the most difficult part is getting them to see me as someone who is not in the middle of a struggle. Whether I am or I'm not, kind of moot, because I want to be treated like a person, somebody just coming into work or whatever. When I did restaurant work in the past, when I first got out, I just wanted to be the dude coming into work. And maybe this was me, maybe they didn't feel this way, but I couldn't help shaking the feeling that everybody was treating me like the recovering addict, the person fresh out of prison, that sort of thing. They weren't scared of me. They were amazing. These are some of the best people I had met, especially at a restaurant job. So kind, so sweet, so loving. But at times I sort of felt like a spectacle. And admittedly, when I first got out, I wanted to be a spectacle. I needed to talk to people about this. So I would vent, I would mention the struggle I was having. And it wasn't for attention. It was like I genuinely needed to talk to people who hadn't been to prison about being in prison. I had only talked to prisoners about it, and my mom and dad. I needed other people to relate to. I'm human. You guys are human, I hope. Like, we got to talk to people. That's what I was doing, but it became who I was. It started to feel like, okay, that's my identity. And that was the biggest issue, is getting past the point where I was seen as somebody in the middle of the most difficult thing they've ever dealt with, and just being Max, the dude who clocked in on the same computer that you clocked in at, that sort of thing. The rest of it has been with strangers. I go to the gas station to fill up my truck, and I feel anxiety that I never would have felt before, just to go talk to the cashier. Not because it's a girl or she's cute. It's just, it's a guy, girl, doesn't matter. Feel like I'm more socially, not awkward, but I'm definitely more socially anxious than I've ever been in my life. It's starting to get better. I think, honestly, this is helping a lot, talking to you all. But that has been something that is definitely new, definitely caused by being incarcerated, is having this anxiety about the people around me. Still looking over my shoulder a little bit, but nowhere near as bad as when I first got out. And I'll tell you this too, when I was in work release, transitioning to house arrest, or even at the restaurant job that I mentioned, I was like ready to fight still. Like if somebody made me mad, and I don't mean something small, but if somebody was like doing something that would have been something to fight over in prison, and I didn't fight a lot in prison, but I was like, had my hackles up. Is that what they're called? Dogs, hackles, whatever. Up still, like ready to go. And that's not who I've ever been in my life. Like happy to defend myself and my family. Never had to, except in prison. Not my family. You know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden I get out and I'm like the violent guy. Didn't hurt anybody. Didn't get into a fight since I've been out. Anything like that. But I was like, dude, reel it in. I would get mad and I wouldn't scream or yell, but I could tell like I want to beat that dude up. And that was just old stress, old anger, probably testosterone and cortisol hormones through the roof, like that needed to reduce to normal levels. So that's long gone. Yeah, I still get frustrated with people, but who doesn't? As far as addiction goes, when I first got out of prison, I got to work release. And I stayed sober almost the whole time, had a brief relapse. Not ashamed of it because I handled it better than I've ever handled anything related to addiction, at least. I told the cops where my drugs were. I, turned myself in, went to jail for a little bit, got back to work release. As far as I knew, the prosecutor was not even going to charge me with possession. It was cocaine that I gave to them or whatever, told them where it was. And I get to house arrest. Everything's good. Sober. Have been sober since. The best sobriety, most solid sobriety of my life. Not a struggle. Not thinking about drugs. And I go in for my weekly visit with, the house arrest people. My officer, awesome dude, Mr. Henson, great guy. Helped me a lot. And so did Miss Armstrong at this work release place. She was insanely helpful, supportive, advocated for me to get, good opportunities for the court to be flexible with me, that sort of thing. But I go in to make my schedule. Out of their hands, the prosecutor had filed on me for this thing that I turned myself in on that had been a year in the past. I think maybe even a little bit more. And I get taken from house arrest where everything's great. I'm processing this trauma and back in jail. It was awful. Back in jail waiting for court. It was legitimately like waking up into a nightmare. And it was one of the worst things that's happened to me ever, to have all those feelings rush back in. And it broke me. I'm not going to lie. It really broke me. I feel like I've had to start over since I got out. It's been quite a while. I think that was April. I mean, it's been a bit and I'm feeling much better, but that's a recent development. Probably the last month that I've started to feel like myself again. And I do think this is helping too, like getting all this out. So after I get out of jail again, staying sober, things are great. All of a sudden, I start thinking about pot. Now, I've smoked pot, sure, and I don't like to be too specific with you guys about the drugs that I used. Like, I've probably said it before, I don't know. I was a heroin and cocaine addict. I did them together. That's basically how I did them. I wouldn't do them by themselves. I would do them by themselves, definitely. Have done, will do. Not will do, did do, Jesus. But I like them together. Dangerous, uppers, downers, you get it. I don't like to talk specifics because that's not what this is about. Addiction is addiction, drug is a drug. That's what I believe. But I started thinking about pot, which has never been my favorite because, to be honest with you, it's just not strong enough to get me where I wanted to go. I needed to cover up feelings, cover up feelings, and it didn't do that for me. It was not strong enough. So I think, in a way, it was my brain trying to trick me. Honestly, it's kind of how I feel about the addict's brain. Like, if you're not careful, you can fall for your brain's tricks, and it's not constantly trying to throw me off. Everything had been going smoothly, and I'm thinking about pot. I think it was trying to trick me into doing something that was mild enough that I could justify it. Like, it's tough to justify heroin use. It's easier to justify something that's becoming legal across the US. But I know from my history that if I smoke pot, I'm in a crack house in 3 days. That is how it goes. I've done it multiple times, been sober, thought, well, I can smoke pot or I can have a beer. And I end up doing the same stuff I always do. Luckily, for whatever reason, maybe it's just growing older, having some maturity, or just staying sober for a certain amount of time, I was able to keep that thought in my brain and not pick up again. That's been a few months. And since then, everything has been great. No cravings for anything. It's really become like a non-issue. So dealing with addiction now on a day-to-day basis looks like creating healthy habits, better behaviors, working towards the future that I want to have. It's not fighting off cravings. Don't pick up, white knuckling it, which is an important part of getting sober. But I seem to be past that now, which is something that I'm more grateful for than most things. That is such a hard part of getting sober. I think it's the most dangerous part. Now, I do try to not be cocky. Like, I know, I could pick up tomorrow. That's a lie. That's something that I learned in AA. I'm not going to pick up tomorrow. But I know that there is potential for me to use again if I start to think I'm the coolest, smartest, wisest, most humble person in the world. Okay? I have to do certain things. Those certain things are exercise, be honest with myself first and other people, work towards a future that I want so I can have some esteem, so I can feel good about me, have decent sleep hygiene, sleep the amount of hours that I need to, and get the quality of sleep that is necessary as well. Have good people in my life. I can't isolate. Now, I am somebody that likes to be alone, but it's important that I recognize when I'm feeling isolated, when I'm feeling lonely, and reach out. I'm blessed to have an amazing family that you guys have heard about. You'll get to meet them at some point. And I'm really lucky to have some amazing friends, a couple of whom are sober. So if I could summarize, reintegrating, how I'm dealing with my life day to day, it's been harder than I thought it was going to be. It's been much harder than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to get out, boom, freedom, joy. There's been a lot of joy, but there has been a lot of trauma to deal with, a lot of behaviors I had to change, and a lot of time that I needed to just be patient through to let everything normalize. And it's still a process. Therapy was hugely helpful. If I hadn't been sober, this would not be a possibility. I would not be able to actually recover from any of this stuff that I had to deal with in prison. It would be just, shoving it down, and then it would pop back up when I was coming off the drugs. So sobriety has been, of course, huge. It's the foundation for everything that I'm able to do in my life today. And I know that some of you understand what I'm saying when I say that, maybe all of you. So guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. If you've enjoyed the video or my other videos, please subscribe, leave a like. Anything that you want to hear about, anything I can help you with, not that I'm a genius, you know what I'm saying, let me know in the comments. I very much appreciate you, all the support. Happy holidays. If I don't see you before then, you'll see me if you're looking at my channel. I'll try to get a video up every day. So take care. Talk to you soon. Bye.